point in time.
C.J. Moore, great writer. We've had C.J. on many times, great features on men's basketball, not just in the Big 12, but throughout the country. Joins us today on 365 Sports. C.J., thanks for your time. So how many teams that were a part of the list of winners during the offseason, a chunk out of the Big 12, including maybe Arizona, or who would that be?
Yeah, I think, Baylor obviously improved their situation. Arizona improved their situation. Texas Tech got a big one this past week and looks better. And, Iowa State, too, I think got some smart additions. So Kansas, obviously, has got some big-name guys in there. So, up and down the Big 12, you've got teams that are adding pieces that should help them, and I think the league's going to be a giant again, especially adding Arizona to the mix.
One of those players who's leaving the Big 12 with BYU and following his coach, Mark Pope, to Kentucky is Jackson Robinson, who waited until early this afternoon to announce his decision to go to Kentucky. How big of a move is that for the Wildcats? And I know the other school that was in on him was Kansas. What do they do following that up?
Well, I'm not really sure why Kansas is still recruiting dudes. Like, they've got plenty of guys. I think if you can get a 6'7" great shooter that has NBA potential, you probably try to get him, and if you've got a chance. So I understand why they were trying to grab him, but at this point, you're just getting greedy. Like, I think they've got plenty on the perimeter with their current roster, and there really aren't any high level guys out there left. I think you might see some schools late in the process, like even as late as August, like Kansas did a year ago, got Johnny Furphy, I think in August. You could see some teams look overseas and try to buy some players overseas. We saw that with Illinois this week, got a really good one. BYU got a good one. So I think that's something that it could become a norm in college basketball, where you miss on, maybe some portal guys and you've got to fill the roster, fill a starting spot late, and you try to go buy a guy overseas. But as far as Jackson Robinson goes, I think he's a guy that can really help Kentucky. And to me, their roster looked like a lot of complimentary guys, but not really a star. I think Jackson Robinson maybe qualifies in that star spot, but I think they still could use. They're missing like some shot creators, but Pope didn't really have a ton of shot creators this past year, and he still had a really good offense. So it makes sense, obviously, going and grabbing him with his familiarity with Jackson.
CJ, Texas Tech was busy in that second half of April, adding 3 players to the portal, and then a little bit of a drought as far as additions go until JT Toppin pledged here this week. Just how big of an addition was that for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders?
Yeah, I think that was huge. I think he's one of the best young big men that was in the portal. A guy that could probably play the 4 or 5. I'm sure they'll start him at the 4. And just, good offensive potential upside. A guy that I know NBA people are keeping their eyes on, and a year from now he could be a first round pick potentially, maybe 6 round longer than that. But he's a guy that I know the upside is thought to be pretty high. And I wrote in my piece today the 2, 3, 4 combo for Texas Tech is about as good as anybody in the country, because Darian Williams was playing awesome into last year, and then I really like Chance McMillan too. So I kind of like that 2, 3, 4 combo for them. I think it's about as good as anybody's in the league.
After what was at least a little bit of like, what's going on with Scott Drew, Kentucky, et cetera, in the end they ended up with one heck of a nice spring, especially with his decision to remain at Baylor. Of the 2 that are both alphas, Norshad Omier and Jeremy Roach, 2 different positions, 2 necessary pickups. Which of those 2 might be more of the, biggest push for them, or the one has the biggest impact for them?
Oh, it's tough to say. I think they both, could have a really big impact. Probably, if there's going to be one that's the leading scorer, I would guess Jeremy Roach would be that guy. Would be just based on how Baylor has played the last few years and their success with guards. he's proven it not just this past year, but for several years now. I'm sure that he'll thrive in that offense and be a guy that averages anywhere from 16 to 18 points per game.
How much did Mark Sears, for a school or a program that was having a nice spring anyway, how much does his return even make Alabama better?
Well, it gives them arguably the best guard in college basketball. I think he was one of the 2 or 3 best in college basketball last year. He just fits so well in that offense. He is such a good shooter and so good off the bounce and just an incredible scorer. So they were already going to be pretty good and had a ton of shooting and a ton of playmakers on their team. But when you can go and get a guy that should be like a first-team All-American to return, that's a pretty good bump. And I probably would have had him somewhere in the top 10 if he didn't come back. But with him coming back, to me, that's the preseason number 1 team.
CJ, how do you feel about the temperature of Porter Moser's seat in Norman? It seems like there's a lot of just kind of consternation about just the results so far through these first 3 seasons. Entering next year, do you feel like there's optimism to be found, or just kind of how do you view that whole situation?
Well, I feel for Porter because, a few years, I think his first season in the Big 12, I think they were the first team out of the NCAA tournament or close to it. They were one of the first teams out this year. So if they make the tournament, and if they win 1 or 2 more games each of those seasons, you're looking at making the tournament 2 out of 3 years, and there's probably they're looking at it as totally different lens, right? I do think there's probably some pressure there going into year 4, haven't made a tournament yet, and having to reload. I mean, they lost. They were looking they were top 10 in the country at one point this past season. They're sitting there at like 15-3, 13-1. They were looking really good. And then to lose, kind of struggle down the stretch and lose 3 guards, Javier McCollum, Otigua Awa, and Miles Uzon. Like that was the core of their team, and could have had all 3 of those guys coming back, and they all leave, and John Hughley also leaves. Their center that played for quite a bit for them. So he's in a tough spot, having to kind of rebuild the roster when it looked like he had a really good core for a couple of years.
CJ, Coleman Hawkins was probably the biggest name now that jumped into the portal. He, especially after you saw, what happened up at Washington and how much money is going for big men right now. Where do you think his arrow will be pointed, when the dollar figures come out?
I mean, I think he's asking for $2 million. Is the number I've heard. I'm not sure that he gets that, but you are in kind of like desperation season where there are some people that have maybe missed on a player or two and got money to spend and are willing to throw it all on one more guy. I don't know that anybody's got $2 million left, but I would guess he's in the neighborhood of above $1 million maybe, just based on what some other guys have gotten and the quality of player he is. One of the, I think we had him maybe 5th or so in our portal rankings. He was right up there. So I'm guessing he gets, in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.5 or something like that. And if I had to guess where he ends up, it's probably Arkansas and some of that chicken money.
There you go.
Maybe they got some of that chicken money left. But I'm sure he's not going to be hurting for cash this next season.
CJ, one more name that's familiar. He played at Baylor, Dane Danger, but then went to Illinois. Brad Underwood's trying to tweak what he does there, and now he's at Memphis. How important was it? And a valuable piece if you look at if he played full 40 minutes, but what kind of player is he going to be for Memphis in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it depends how they play, kind of. Like, are they going to be willing to throw it into the post and maybe not try to play like 5 out, spread it out like Illinois was trying to play this last year. But if they're willing to throw it in the post, I think he could put up really good numbers, and if he gets minutes. He was one of my, like Sam Bassini and I who do the rankings, we kind of went back and forth on him because I wanted to put him higher than then Sam was willing to go because I think pretty highly of him. I know he's had some like motor issues and that kind of stuff, but when he's on the floor, he produces at a pretty high level and really, really skilled, great hands, great feet, great touch. So I think he could be a guy that could be an all-league guy in that league if he gets the minutes and the touches.
Thank you for your time. Always great to have you, CJ, with your knowledge, great writing skills, and the features you do. Thank you very much. Have a great week.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
CJ Moore from theathletic.com does great feature writing. I mean, really, really good feature writing on it does a lot around the